What happens when the man everyone mocked as unromantic is the one standing calm in the courthouse lobby while his wife is finally handed the papers she deserves? How does the boring, controlling husband become the only adult in the room with a new ring on his finger and a better partner at his side, while the woman who shamed him in public realizes the story was never hers to control? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Silas Marrow, and according to my wife, I ruined her life with one quiet moment by a river. She tells people my proposal was the worst she ever heard, a sad little scene with a cheap ring and no passion. In her story, I am the unromantic husband, the man who never understood her heart and tried to cage her with comfort and routine. She repeats that story at dinners, in bars, online for strangers who send her hearts and write that she deserves better. They laugh at a man they do not know, a shadow in the background of her perfect angles and filters. For a long time, I stayed silent and allowed her version to stand, because I thought the truth would somehow shine through on its own. I thought people who loved us would see the full picture. Instead, her story grew louder, and I became the villain in rooms I had never even entered. This is my version, told without music, filters, or edits. It starts with the ring by the river, it runs through every joke and whisper, and it ends in a lobby where stories finally meet paper. Camilla says the story always starts with the ring, but for me it starts with the way she laughs when she tells it. That morning in the kitchen, she sat on the counter in her robe, bare feet swinging, phone in her hand. She scrolled, smiled, and then read comments out loud in a light voice. She said people loved her proposal trauma story and that someone wanted her to film a longer version. She called it funny and real. I stood by the coffee machine and listened to her describe my knees on the wet stone by the river, the cheap ring between my fingers, the way my voice shook. She said it was the moment she realized romance was dead for her. She did not use my name, but it did not matter. I knew the scene. It belonged to us once. Now it belonged to whoever liked and shared it. When I asked her if she could maybe stop telling that story just for a while, she sighed and rolled her eyes. She said I was trying to control her voice. She said sharing pain was healing, and if I felt attacked, it was because I refused to admit I had done anything wrong. I told her I did not want to erase her feelings. I only wanted our private life to stay private. She said privacy was not an excuse for a boring proposal and turned back to her comments. My words fell on the floor between us like a dropped spoon. That day, on my way to work, my mind went back to the evening at the riverside. The air had been cold, and the water had looked dark and flat. My hands had shaken because I was afraid she would say no, not because I did not care. I had spent weeks saving for the ring. It was not big, but I chose it because I knew she liked simple lines. I remembered the way she smiled that night and how she held my face in her hands. She said yes. She did not say it was a tragedy then. She did not call it content. In my memory, it was quiet, and that was enough. On her page now, the same moment had a different light. There were captions about settling, about ignoring red flags, about learning to love yourself after a dead proposal. Strangers wrote that she was brave for leaving such a dull man. They added laughing faces. They did not know my name, but they knew I existed as a warning. That evening, I walked into our bedroom and saw the blue glow of her screen against the dark. She lay on her side, back to me, shoulders slightly shaking. At first I thought she was crying. Then I heard the small sound she makes when she holds back a laugh. She said in a low voice that her followers did not understand how bad it really was, that one day she would tell the full story. I realized she was on a voice call, not a video. I heard her say my proposal felt like a job interview, that I sat there like a manager offering a contract with no romance. I could not hear the answer, but I heard a male laugh. I said her name softly. She told whoever was on the line that I had walked in. She said she would call back later. She hung up and put her phone face down. She told me she was just talking to a friend and that I looked serious. She asked why I was always tense when she talked about the proposal. I said it hurt to hear her call the best moment of my life a mistake. She said I was making this about me again and that this was exactly the problem, that I could not handle her truth. After that, the room felt smaller. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, and listened to her breathing even out as she fell asleep. The story kept working in my head. I thought of the people who heard only her side. I thought of the way they must see me. At first, I tried to comfort myself with ideas about fairness. I told myself that the people who loved us would know better. My mother, her parents, our old friends from school. I believed they would treat her page like a movie, not like the news. I was wrong. A week later, I passed by the open bedroom door and heard Camilla speaking again in that same light, sad tone. She was on a video call with her mother. She said I never tried to make things romantic after that day by the river. She said I used money and being stable as a shield. I stood still in the hallway and listened as her mother agreed. Her mother said practical men could be cold and that I should learn how to show feeling like other husbands online. I did not go in. I did not shout that I did try, that I planned dinners, small trips, quiet evenings with movies she chose. None of that was in the story. The story had room only for the ring and my shaking hands. That night, I took my phone to the balcony. The city lights were soft. The air felt damp. I opened Camilla's page and scrolled through her posts. There it was, a photo of a river from some stock source, a caption about the worst proposal ever, and how saying yes to the wrong man is a wound. The comments were full of cheering. People told her she was strong for leaving. People told her men like me were dangerous in quiet ways. I pressed and held the screen and saved the post. I did not know exactly why yet. I only knew I did not want it to disappear. I opened the Notes app and wrote the date of the post, the time, and a few lines about what she had said to her mother. Then I started a simple spreadsheet. Nothing special, just columns with day, place, story, witness. I filled in the first row with the river, the post, her mother. The lines looked thin and neat, but my chest felt heavy. As I typed, I heard the bedroom door latch click inside. I quickly minimized the sheet and set the phone face down on the table. On the top of my screen, a new calendar reminder flashed for a second before fading. Old Town Cafe, 7:30 p.m. Meeting personal. I had not created that event, and it was not on my shared calendar. I sat very still on the balcony, listening to the soft creak of the floor as Camilla moved around inside, and realized for the first time that if she was going to turn our life into a story for strangers, I would need to start keeping my own record, just not where she could see it. The first time my wife's story walked into my office, it was wearing my coworker's smirk. I arrived a little late that morning because I had not slept well. My eyes felt heavy, but the open-plan floor was bright and loud as always. I set my bag down, turned on my computer, and heard a small laugh behind me. One of the guys from the next row said he had seen a wild proposal story on his feed. He asked if I'd ever done something like that. His tone was light, but he kept looking at me, not at the others. I smiled in a flat way and asked what story he meant. He said it was about a man who proposed by a river like he was filling out a form, and he laughed again. Another coworker said it sounded like something from a movie. I kept my hands on the keyboard and did not answer. The words "worst proposal ever" repeated in my head like a small echo. When the morning rush slowed, I walked to the break room to get water. Mira was there, leaning against the counter with her mug. She watched me for a second and then asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just tired. She did not believe me. She said she had seen a video from an account that looked like my wife's. She said she did not want to stick her nose in, but the story in the video sounded close to what I had told her once about proposing by the river. I felt my stomach drop. I asked her in a quiet voice what the video showed. She said Camilla was talking about a dead proposal and a man who used being stable as a cage, and that she felt safe now telling her side. She said there were no names, but some people in our circle might know. I asked if I could see it. Mira looked at me for a moment, then unlocked her phone and handed it to me. The video was not long. Camilla sat in good light, hair done, soft music in the background. She spoke in a calm voice about a man who knelt by a river with a cheap ring and no idea how to touch her heart. She said she had said yes because she was scared of being alone. She said he became more controlling, more jealous, and that she lost herself. She never said Silas, but she talked about my work field and our city. That was enough. The comments below were full of strangers calling the man in the story a walking red flag. They warned her to run. They praised her for escaping. I felt my face getting hot, but my hands stayed still. I gave the phone back to Mira and thanked her for showing me. She asked what I was going to do. I said I did not know yet, but I would not make a scene at work. I walked back to my desk and sat down. My computer screen had finished loading. The desktop looked clean, almost too clean. I opened a new folder and named it Archive A. Inside that, I made another called Archive B. Then I opened my email and sent myself the link to the video from my phone, with no subject line, just the date. I downloaded it and saved it inside the new folder. A small Cloud Sync pop-up appeared in the corner. File uploaded successfully. The words looked kind, almost friendly. I stared at them for a full breath. Around midday, I got a message from HR. The subject line said they would like a quick meeting before the end of the day. My chest tightened a little. I walked down the hall to the HR office, where the walls were painted a soft color that tried to make bad news feel gentle. The manager, a woman named Catherine, asked me to sit. She said some staff had come to her with concerns after seeing posts about control and emotional harm in a marriage. She said my name was not in the posts, but people believed the story might be about me. She asked if everything at home was safe. She spoke slowly, as if I might break. I told her my wife liked to share things online that were not always full context. I said I had never hurt my wife, never stopped her from working or seeing friends, and never touched her in anger. I kept my voice calm and did not talk about the river, or the ring, or the late calls. Catherine said she believed me, but she needed to be sure there was no risk that the situation would spill into the office. She reminded me of the company's policy about harassment and online conduct. She said perception could affect the workplace even if facts were different. Her words were careful, like steps on thin ice. I listened and nodded. When she finished, I asked if I could have copies of any posts or screenshots people had shared with her, just for my own records. I did not raise my voice, did not sound angry. I said I wanted to understand what others were seeing. She looked at me for a second and then printed a few pages with blurred screenshots. She placed them in a plain folder and slid it across the desk. The front of the folder was blank. No logo, no title, just wait. I thanked her and said I would do everything I could to keep my personal life from affecting my work. Back at my desk, I did not open the folder right away. I placed it next to my keyboard and answered a few support tickets, trying to let my heart slow down. When the office got a little quieter, I slid the folder closer and opened it. Inside were grainy images of Camilla's page, lines from captions, and a few comments. Even blurred, I could recognize the river photo and the soft light from her truth video. One screenshot quoted her talking about a man who checked her location and monitored her phone. I read the words and felt something cold settle in my stomach. I did not slam the folder shut. I did not tear anything. I simply pulled my keyboard closer, opened Archive A, and created a subfolder called Home. I scanned the pages and saved them, one by one, with dates in the file names. The same cloud notice appeared each time, a small message saying the files were safely stored elsewhere. After work, I went to the gym to meet my brother. The locker room smelled like soap and metal. Jonah tossed a towel at me and said he had seen a clip of my wife's story on someone's feed. He asked if it was true that I ruined her life with a dead proposal. I told him the video did not show the full truth. He asked why I was letting her say these things without defending myself. He said if it were him, he would go down to the bar where she filmed some of her content and make a scene. He said people needed to see I was not weak. I told him I was not going to fight anyone in public. I said anger would only feed her story. I said I was listening, watching, and writing things down. He frowned and called that passive. He said the internet moved fast and I was losing. I told him the internet was not the only place where stories could be checked. He did not understand, but he clapped my shoulder and said he was on my side. On my way out of the building, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out and saw a call from a number marked only as private. The screen lit my hand in the dim hallway. At the same time, my manager stepped out of her office and asked if we could have a quick word tomorrow about some ongoing concerns. I let the call from the private number ring out and listened to it go silent. I told her, of course, tomorrow was fine. As I walked toward the elevator, the phone screen dimmed, and in the dark reflection I could see my own face, calm and tired, and I thought that maybe it was better if some conversations waited until I knew exactly where to speak next. The rooftop bar was one of those places Camilla loved, high above the city with string lights and soft music that made every drink look important. She had spent the whole week talking about the engagement party there, about how romantic it would be when their friend's boyfriend got down on one knee. She said real proposals needed drama and surprise and beauty. She did not say the word river, but she did not have to. It sat between us in every sentence. When we arrived, she moved ahead of me, heels clicking on the floor, arms open for hugs. She greeted people like a small star. I followed behind with our gift in my hand, feeling like a delivery driver. Dylan stood near the bar, laughing with a few staff. When he saw Camilla, he smiled wide and opened his arms. She leaned into him for a long, tight hug, her hand brushing his shoulder as if they had some quiet joke. I walked up, placed my free hand lightly on her back, and said it was good to see everyone. She shifted just enough that my hand slid from her spine to the air. It looked like nothing, but I felt the small rejection in my fingers. The engagement itself was sweet. The man knelt on the wooden deck under the lights, pulled out a ring, and spoke words only they could hear. The crowd clapped and whistled. Camilla's eyes shone as she filmed the moment on her phone. She whispered that this was what a real proposal looked like. Later, when people had more drinks and the air grew warmer, someone suggested everyone share proposal stories. Couples went around the circle, telling short, kind tales of nervous questions and surprised answers. When it was our turn, I opened my mouth to speak, but Camilla spoke first. She said our story was complicated and that people already knew it from her posts. Someone shouted that they wanted the live version. Another joked that they wanted the worst proposal ever in person. She laughed, covered her face for a second, then stepped up onto a low bench. She lifted her empty glass like a microphone. My chest went tight. She began to act out the scene by the river, but not as it was. She dropped to one knee in a clumsy way, making her body stiff like a robot. She made her voice flat and dull, copying words I never said, turning the quiet fear in my chest that night into a joke about me offering benefits and stability instead of love. People laughed. Dylan joined in, standing beside her and pretending to be her heart waking up. He said in a dramatic tone that she should not settle. The crowd howled. Someone I barely knew slapped my back and said it was all in good fun. I kept my face still, my hands hung at my sides. Inside, each word landed like a small stone, but outside I did not give them any sharp edges to hold. Around us, phones were raised. The soft light from the string bulbs reflected on screens. One girl near the edge of the group held her phone high and clearly recorded the whole performance. I watched the small red light in the corner of her screen. That light, more than the words, told me something important. The moment would not end on the deck. It would travel. After the crowd moved on to other topics, I stepped back toward the railing, away from the heat and noise. The city stretched out below like a flat map. Mira appeared beside me with 2 glasses of water. She did not smile. She said quietly that what happened was not okay. I said it was fine, that I was used to it. My voice did not sound like mine. She told me she had seen people recording. She said I should know that the clip would probably end up online. I asked if she had caught any of it on her phone. She nodded and showed me a short recording she had taken, more by reflex than plan. In it, my face was visible in the background, expressionless, while Camilla and Dylan played in the light like actors. I asked if she could send it to me later. She agreed without asking why, and that simple trust felt heavier than any of the laughter behind us. On the way home, Camilla walked a little ahead of me on the sidewalk, still buzzing from attention. She said people finally understood what she had gone through. She said her followers would love the raw version even more. She talked about maybe cutting the clip into a story. She asked if I heard how loud everyone laughed. I said I heard. My voice was steady. She asked if I was upset. I said I was tired. That part was true. In the stairwell of our building, the echo made our steps sound sharper. Camilla's tone shifted. She said I was making her look like a bully by being so quiet. She said good husbands could laugh at themselves. She said my silence was another kind of control, that I was trying to make her feel guilty. I replied in a low voice that I did not find it funny to be turned into a warning sign in front of strangers. I said there was a difference between sharing feelings and rewriting history. She said I was twisting her healing into an attack. While we spoke, I noticed one of the doors on our floor open just a crack. A neighbor's eye and a sliver of their face appeared, then froze. Our words, even kept low, carried in the narrow space. I lowered my voice even more and suggested we continue inside. She huffed and walked to our apartment, heels tapping fast on the concrete. As I followed, the neighbor's door closed with a soft click that sounded louder than it should. Inside, Camilla threw her bag on the couch and grabbed her phone. She started typing with quick, sharp motions, probably answering messages about the party. I went to the mail shelf by our door, more to give myself something to do than to expect anything. A thin binder sat there, labeled Utilities in Camilla's handwriting, but when I picked it up, it felt too heavy for simple bills. The spine bowed slightly with the weight. I opened it just enough to see that behind a few regular statements were printed screenshots, notes in her looping script, maybe ideas for future posts. I did not stand there and read them all. Instead, I closed the binder, walked to the small desk in the corner, and pulled open the top drawer. Inside, my laptop rested next to a few folders. I slid the utilities binder on top of them and closed the drawer halfway. From the living room, I heard Camilla talking on speaker, telling someone that she would post the proposal show tomorrow and that it would finally set her free. The person on the other end laughed and said the crowd had loved it. I caught Dylan's name in the mix. My hand went to the key in the desk lock. I paused just long enough to take a slow breath, then turned it until I heard the soft click. Somewhere downstairs in the stairwell, a door opened and closed, and for a moment the building felt like a shell around us, holding echoes of every joke, every whisper. I sat down at the desk, opened my laptop, and watched the screen light up my face. I did not open social media. I opened my growing spreadsheet and wrote one more line. Rooftop bar, public mockery, phones recording, neighbor listening. As I typed, an image flashed in my mind of that girl's camera flash at the bench and the neighbor's half-open door. and I understood that all the things she thought were just light and noise could also become something else in the right room, under a different kind of light. Nora's birthday was the kind of small family event that used to feel safe to me, a place with paper crowns, spilled juice, and simple smiles. This time, as I walked toward the park with a wrapped gift under my arm, it felt more like a stage I had not asked to step on. The sky was bright and the grass looked fresh, but my stomach felt tight. I saw Camilla first. She stood near a picnic table with her sister and parents, talking with her hands, phone in the other. When she noticed me, she raised a hand in a short wave and went back to her story. I heard my name mixed into the words, like a soft stone hidden in bread. Nora ran at me with a cardboard crown sliding over one eye. She told me she was 6 now and that she wanted to show me the swings. I followed her, grateful for the simple weight of her small hand in mine. At the swings, I pushed her gently while she told me about school and friends. In the background, I could hear Camilla telling her mother and father again about the proposal. She told them that the river felt like a cold office, that I had sounded like I was offering a contract, not love. She said she had taken years to heal from that moment. I heard Lena say that practical men often failed to understand what real romance meant, and that I should have known better. Mark's voice was softer, almost lost in the noise of the park. He asked if things were really that bad. Camilla said they were worse than they looked online. The chain of words wrapped itself around me even as I focused on Nora's swing. After a while, Nora slowed and looked back over her shoulder. She said in a quiet voice that she had heard Camilla tell her mother that I broke her heart on purpose. She asked if that was true. The question felt heavier than any adult judgment. I told her that grown-ups sometimes used strong words when they were hurt, and that stories online were not always the full truth. I said I loved Camilla once and that I never wanted to hurt her on purpose. Nora nodded in the simple way children nod when they do not fully understand but feel they should move on. She asked if we could get ice cream later. I said we could. At the restaurant, the long table was crowded with plates, balloons, and voices. The air smelled like fried food and candle wax. Camilla took a seat near the middle, where everyone could see her. I sat a little off to the side with Eleanor and Jonah. The servers brought out food, and for a while everyone talked about work and school and normal things. I let myself almost relax. Then one of our cousins, already a bit loud from drinks, asked if Camilla would tell the proposal story for the relatives who had missed her video. He said he had heard it was legendary. A few people laughed and chimed in, saying they loved her honesty online. Camilla gave a small shy act, then said she could share the short version. She said she had once been proposed to by a man by a river who cared more about the price of the ring than the feeling of the moment. She said he spoke like a manager explaining benefits, that he never gave her the grand gesture she deserved. She added something new this time. She said he checked her location too much and watched her phone because he knew he had failed her and was afraid she would leave. I felt several pairs of eyes turn toward me at that line. Jonas shifted in his seat. Eleanor glanced at me with a face that held both anger and worry. Mark stared at his plate. Lena put a hand on Camilla's arm and said her daughter was strong for surviving such a cold start to a marriage. Someone at the other end of the table pulled out a phone and showed a short clip from the rooftop bar. I saw my own still face in the background again, tiny on the screen, while Camilla acted and laughed in the warm lights. Laughter rolled along the table like a small wave. It did not hit as hard as the first time, but it still left a wet mark. I did not bang my fist. I did not stand up. When there was a small pause, I said in a calm voice that the evening by the river had felt different to me, that I had loved her, and that I had thought she was happy then. I added that we had shared our locations by agreement, for safety, not control. I did not stare anyone down. I kept my eyes on the tablecloth and my tone low. The air shifted. Some people looked away, suddenly busy with their plates. The cousin who had asked for the story cleared his throat and changed the subject to work. The laughter faded into clinking silverware. Later, in the hallway near the restrooms, Eleanor caught my arm. She said she had watched the rooftop clip on someone's phone and felt sick. She said she could not believe how far the story had gone. She asked if I was really okay. I told her I was not sure what okay meant anymore, but I was thinking clearly. I said I was writing things down. She told me there were ways to protect myself without shouting, and that I needed to think about what I wanted my life to look like in 5 years, with or without this constant public shame. Her words settled in a deep place in me. After the meal, I offered to stop at the supermarket with Camilla to pick up some things Lena needed. Camilla agreed because it made her look cooperative. In the bright light of the supermarket, the party mood felt far away. At the checkout, as we placed milk and bread on the belt, a neighbor from our building stepped into line behind us. She recognized Camilla first, and then me. She said she had seen Camilla's recent video about healing from a controlling husband and had not known I had anger issues. She looked at me with a mix of concern and judgment. For a second, the world narrowed to the space between us. I could feel Camilla watching my reaction. I smiled politely and said I did not discuss private matters with people who watched us from screens. I thanked the neighbor for her concern and left it there. The neighbor's smile faltered. The cashier looked down at the scanner. Camilla later accused me in the car of making her look like a liar. I did not answer. At home, after the grocery bags were away and the noise of the day had faded, I stood alone in the kitchen. The calendar on the wall caught my eye. Its pages were clean, except for birthdays and bills. I picked up a red pen from the counter and circled a date a few weeks ahead. The circle was neat, not angry, just clear. On my phone, I set a new alarm labeled Paper Drop 11 a.m. and placed it for that date. The words on the screen glowed softly, then dimmed when I locked it. In the living room, Camilla lay on the couch, phone in hand, face lit by the blue light of new comments. She told someone in a sweet, tired voice that she was exhausted from all the emotional work of telling her truth. From the hallway, I heard Nora's small voice in my memory asking if I broke her aunt's heart on purpose. The question was sharper now than any words spoken at the restaurant. As Camilla's soft laughter floated from the couch and the red circle on the calendar dried, I understood that if I did nothing, children would grow up believing the story she fed them. I looked at the quiet wall, at the small circle of ink around that date, and decided that the next chapter of this story would not be written in captions or comments. The first night I moved my pillow to the guest room, Camilla said I was being dramatic. She stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, phone still in her hand, and asked why I was punishing her. I told her I needed space to think and sleep, that the constant noise around our marriage was too loud. I said I did not want to fight every night. She said distance would only prove to her followers that I was cold and controlling. She warned me that people were already worried for her. I picked up my folded shirts from the dresser and carried them past her without raising my voice. The guest room smelled like old paint and cardboard. It was smaller, with a narrow bed and a short wardrobe. I hung my clothes in careful rows and placed my phone on the nightstand. When I lay down, the house sounded different. The space between us felt solid for the first time, not just emotional. In the dark, my phone lit up once with a notification from a thread titled Follow Up. The last message said there was time to talk on Thursday if I still wanted. I stared at the text for a long moment and then typed that Thursday would be fine. I did not explain more. The reply came back quickly, short and calm, confirming the time and place. The name in my contacts was only a small scales emoji. I locked the screen and let the room fall quiet again. In the morning, I woke before my alarm. I could hear Camilla moving in the hallway, opening and closing cabinets. When I entered the kitchen, she acted surprised to see me. She said it felt weird and abusive that I had slept apart from her. I told her I did not see it as abuse. I said it was a boundary. I repeated that I needed space to think clearly. She said boundaries were something victims used, not people like me. She reminded me that her followers wanted updates and that my change in sleeping arrangements would not look good if she chose to share it. I poured coffee, my hand steady. I said she could share whatever she wanted with her followers, that I could not control her phone. I added in a quiet voice that there were other ways to tell a story and that not all rooms cared about likes. She asked what that meant. I told her I was still working it out. After she left for a meeting, I sat at the small desk in the living room. The utilities binder lay on top of the drawer where I had locked it. I unlocked the drawer, took out the binder, and opened it. Behind the first pages of regular bills, I found notes in her handwriting about video ideas, lines she wanted to say, and lists of red flags she planned to talk about. My name appeared several times in short phrases. I did not cross anything out. I did not tear the paper. I closed the binder again and set it aside. Then I opened my laptop. On the screen, my folders Archive A and Archive B waited like quiet boxes. Inside a new folder, I created 3 more: Home, Auto, and Bank. I went through my email and downloaded copies of our lease, car insurance, bank statements, and anything else that carried both of our names. I saved them in their places, each file name starting with a date. A small cloud sync notice appeared again and again, saying the files were uploaded successfully. The words were the same each time, calm and predictable, which made them feel safer than any conversation I had had in months. When I heard the main door of the building close downstairs, I knew Camilla was truly gone for a while. The quiet felt like an open window. I got up, went to the wall calendar, and looked at the red circle I had drawn. The date felt closer now, even though the ink was still fresh. I checked my phone. The alarm labeled Paper Drop 11 a.m. sat there, ready, small and harmless on the screen. I did not change it. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and keys and left the apartment. The parking garage under our building smelled like concrete and engine oil. My car was parked facing the street, the hood pointing toward the light coming from the open exit. I leaned against the cool metal and called the contact with the scales emoji. When the call connected, the voice on the other side sounded calm and clear. I explained, in plain words, that my wife had been sharing stories about me online that were not full truth, that my job had been dragged into it, and that my family was split. I said I was not interested in shouting or making public scenes. I said I wanted to know what options a person had when their life had been turned into someone else's content. The voice asked me some simple questions about dates, posts, and witnesses. I answered one by one. I kept my own voice low and steady, even when I talked about the rooftop bar or the restaurant. The voice told me to keep saving everything and to avoid reacting in ways that could be twisted. There was talk of steps, of how to move, not with rage but with structure. I listened more than I spoke. When the call ended, my phone screen showed the call time in small numbers. I took a screenshot of that too, and saved it. Back upstairs, Camilla arrived just as I was closing the laptop. She asked if I had been spying on her content again. I told her I had been organizing our documents because life felt unstable. She said it was creepy that I cared about paperwork while she was going through emotional storms. She told me her latest video about healing had performed well and that people were sending her long messages about their own dead proposals. She said she might start a series. I looked at her for a long moment. I noticed the way she shifted her weight when she spoke, the way her eyes flicked to her reflection in the microwave door as if checking how pain looked on her face. I said I believed she was hurt. I also said her hurt did not give her the right to rewrite me completely. She called that a guilty man sentence. In the evening, Jonah called and asked if he should confront Dylan. He said he wanted to find him at the bar and let him know how he felt about the rooftop performance. I told him no. I said I did not want punches or threats. I said if he wanted to support me, the best way was to keep calm, remember what he had seen and heard, and be ready to speak it clearly one day if needed. He sounded frustrated, but agreed. Later, my mother phoned. Her voice was tired, but firm. She said she had been thinking about what she had seen online and at the restaurant. She told me I did not have to stay in a life where I was always the villain for someone else's story. She said if I chose to leave, it would not be a failure. It would be self-respect. I told her I was not packing a bag and running. I said I was still here, still steady, but that I was not helpless. She asked what that meant. I told her I was learning how to handle things properly. The words felt solid in my mouth. That night, Camilla tried again to pull me back into the shared bed. She stood in the guest room doorway and asked me to stop making her look like a bad person. She said her followers would not understand a husband who sleeps in another room to punish his wife for healing. I told her I was not trying to shape her followers anymore. I said I was done competing with comments. I added that I would handle our situation properly, step by step, and that she should keep all her videos and stories safe, because sometimes the things we share for fun become important in other rooms. She stared at me, trying to read my face. She asked if I was threatening her. I answered that I was not threatening anyone. I said I was simply tired of being a ghost in my own life. As I lay back on the narrow bed after she left, my phone alarm test buzzed softly for the next day, the label Paper Drop 11:00 a.m. lighting the dark for a brief second. I silenced it with one tap, placed the phone face down, and felt a strange sort of calm settle over me, the kind that comes when a story is finally moving toward a different kind of ending. The courthouse lobby smelled like dust and coffee, not like justice. Camilla walked in with her phone already recording, speaking softly to her followers about taking back her story. Dylan stayed a few steps behind her, eyes down. I stood near the wall with Mira. Her hand rested in mine, the small ring on her finger catching the gray light. My heart beat fast, but my face stayed calm. A man in a plain jacket stepped forward and asked for Camilla by her full name. She answered without thinking, still facing her camera. He handed her a thick envelope and said he was serving a divorce petition with temporary orders. His voice was even, almost kind. She stared at the papers, then at me. She asked how I could do this. I told her, in a low voice, that I was not attacking her, only protecting myself. I said the stories did not match the facts anymore. Her mother rushed toward her. Dylan backed away. I turned and walked with Mira toward the doors. As we stepped out into the bright plaza, the noise of the lobby faded behind us, and for once the story went quiet inside the building.